Hi guys, welcome to the build of the MBR Sports Car channel. This is part 8, and what I have done is got into some of the old COVID videos, and I found a way of updating them, so I hope you enjoy those. And yeah, let's crack on with the video. I'm going to talk to you about common parts on cars. I've used some common parts, and a lot of manufacturers, either race car manufacturers or even production car manufacturers, use bits from other cars. A classic case example, I've got a Porsche Panamera diesel, and that engine isn't actually made by Porsche, it's made by Audi. And if you look back in time, one of the iconic James Bond films, they used a Lotus Esprit, where you see the white car coming out of the sea, and the door handles on that are actually off a Morris Marina. So now I've told you that, you won't be able to unhear it, and every time you look at a Lotus, you'll think, oh, they're off a Morris Marina. So what I'm going to do now is show you some of the parts that I've used from other vehicles. So I'm starting at the front of the car, and the first thing you notice is these headlights. I quite like them because the little white bit is where the indicator flashes, and what I'll do in a minute, I'll put up a video of it actually working at night, and it does actually look really cool. And these are off they're aftermarket parts for a Jeep Wrangler, and I think they might also fit on some Land Rovers as well. But yeah, I really like the design of them, and they fit in absolutely perfectly with the car. So next up, we're going to carry on with the front of the car. I'm going to walk over, and the first part we'll see is the front anti-roll bar here. And back in the early 90s, we ran Rolts in British Formula 3 very successfully, and this anti-roll bar is off a Rolt RT35. So the only thing I haven't done on here is put adjustable blades, and when we get to the back of the car in a minute, I'll show you the adjustable blades. And just around the other side from the anti-roll bar is the steering rack going across there. Although it's not a common part, we actually ran Pro Sports, and one of the first versions of the car was a bit modified on a Pro Sport. So this steering rack here is actually off of that. Then we move slightly across in the top of the picture here, you'll see this rocker post and this rocker, and that's off a Reynard Formula 3000 car. When I dive into the car itself, I've just been talking to you about this in the latest videos, is a handbrake, and that handbrake is off a Mini Cooper. Okay. One thing I haven't cheated with is the dials. A lot of manufacturers use dials off of other cars or ones you buy off the shelf, and as you can see here, I've actually had my own dials made, which I'm really quite pleased with. You can see the Osprey sign in a couple of the dials as well. So, and I've had the faces done to match the car. Okay, and as we start moving back, another thing is the coil packs. I've got two. They're off a 4-cylinder engine, so obviously we need two. Saying that word again, sorry. We need two coil packs here, and I got them from SBD, where I'm getting a lot of the electronic stuff from. And I know they're off of Vauxhall. Can't remember what Vauxhall it's off of, but I'll put the post up if I can remember. Right, now coming across, we come towards the back of the car, and this is where we've got the rear anti-roll bar, and that is again off a Dallara Formula 3 car. Now, as I was explaining to you on the front, I haven't got any form of adjustment. You can see on the back here, I might have explained this before in one of the other videos, but this is what they call the anti-roll bar blade. Now, I've got a steel rule to show you what actually happens. As you can see, in this plane, it's quite flexible, and if you move that through 90 degrees, it becomes very unflexible. So you can have different settings, and that's what these little notches round there are. So that's from fully soft as it is there, and if you go around to this notch, it's then fully hard. Okay, so that's the main parts that I've used off of other cars. Well, first of all, I've got an apology to make. The studs that I showed you weren't drawn by Adam, they were drawn by his fiancée B, who's learning how to draw CAD at the moment. So first whoops from Mark. Next up, what have I been doing? Not a lot to show from what I've been doing all week. Basically, I spent all weekend on this thing, which is the underside of the dash. I'll be going into the dash later on a later episode, but basically it's been filling, sanding, and I'm almost there. A couple more days to go and the underside of the dash should be done. Right, what else? Last Wednesday, as you probably saw, we I sent through some pictures of the mirror bits that I sent up to Adam, and Adam sent back to me the indicators, or one indicator, should I say, the right hand indicator, because he's already done the left hand indicator. So this is as it comes from Adam, with the LEDs fitted and the mirror too I've got to fit, and if you look underneath you can see all the LEDs in there. So yeah, I've got to clamp that together, get it all in the right position, to before I can put it onto the body. And here's the left-hand side one, which has already been fitted to the body and then taken out. As you can see, I've got the light on. It's only powered by a 9-volt battery at the moment, but if I disconnect it and connect it, you should see the light come on and off. There we go. That's the indicator. Okay, so that's all that's been happening this week. On to the next videos. Right, rear suspension. All Adam's design. He had to come up with all the mounting points, all the pickup points, everything basically in blue he designed. One bit we had to carry over from the last car was the rear upright, so we obviously had to use these mounting points here. And the other thing that I had to incorporate, or he had to incorporate in the design, was we wanted to retain the dampers that we used on the previous cars as well. So it's basically the dampers and the uprights. Everything else that you see here, he's had to draw and make. Right, I'll start off on how it works. It's what is called a push rod system. So basically, as the car goes up, it pushes, and obviously I've taken the damper off to see it so I can show you it moving. It compresses the damper, and hence you get your suspension. Right, moving across, this thing here is called your anti-roll bar. This takes the load from one wheel to the other wheel, so obviously improves the handling and the grip characteristics of the car. Now, we've designed this. One bit I did forget to mention just now, that we have borrowed off another car. This actually roll bar itself is from a Dallara, and it just made it a lot easier to choose one of their Dallara anti-roll bars. We've got various different sizes, so we can tune the suspension. Obviously this is a 19mm one. I've got a 30mm one here, because obviously the smaller diameter is, the softer it is. And so yeah, it's a bit of a guess at where we are with the suspension at the moment, so I'm going slightly softer, and I can always go harder later. We have got one other way of adjusting the suspension, that's around here, and I'll show you how it works. Right, here we've got the anti-roll bar blade. Now it works in the same principle as a knife, so in this plane it's not very strong. If you turn it into this plane, it's incredibly strong. So by doing this, if you look, I can turn it from fully hard to fully soft, so we can quite easily adjust the suspension without actually having to take the roll bar off itself. Alright, next up on it is the dampers, which are dampers here. We've got quite a heavy spring on it, a lot heavier than I thought we'd have to run. It's a 2,000 spring, and we can adjust what we call the bump, so when the damper goes into shortens, basically we can move that one there, and we've got the rebound, so when it's coming back we can adjust it in the other plane. Okay, getting on to making things. One of the first things obviously I had to go from Adam's drawings was the brackets. Now as you can imagine, basically every blue bracket you see on here, bar this one, which is nicknamed Bunny Ears, because on the drawing board it did look a bit like a bunny. I've had to make everything else. Quite an enjoyable thing to do, because I've got Adam's drawing and everything's been made out of a big block of material. Now what I'll do is I'll put some pictures on so you can see how I started making all the bits and pieces. The one I put probably more on anything else is the rocker. Quite complicated, took a bit of thinking about how I'd actually make it. Had to make the rocker post underneath, and obviously sort all the bearings out, because there's bearings under there to obviously make the operation smooth. Wishbones, when I came to make the wishbones, before I actually started I had to make one of these things. It's called a wishbone jig. As you can see, that way around, because it's rubber mounted, that end and this end, that's for the where you adjust the tracking, and the other side's for the where it goes onto the upright. Now, adjustability of the suspension, we can adjust it in many ways. One of the compromises we had to make is, because it's going on the road, it gets lots of bumps and bashes, so we're not quite sure whether we've got to rubber mount all the suspension or some of the suspension. So what we've done is compromised. In the bottom lower wishbone here, we've got rubber joints. On the top, we've got proper rose joints. Now, you can see a big gap here, and got the same the other side. That's done so that if we feel that we want to put rubber joints on here, we can make some new wishbones up and end up with rubber joints top and bottom. And Vicky Verky on the bottom, we can put rose joints on there if we don't actually find that we actually need rubber mounts on the bottom. Tracking is adjusted by this point here. The camber is adjusted there. And this push rod in here that you can see is silver is actually just a dummy one at the moment, because eventually we're going to have a gas strut on there that we can raise and lower the suspension by about 50mm, but that's a little way off yet. But again, at the moment that's just a dummy push rod. A few other little niceties we do. If you come around the other side, I see what we've done on the wishbone. We do things like we put little washers
on the wishbone going across. That means that all the lines for the brakes that we've got to put on, we can actually tie above the wishbone. Obviously, it was below, it'd be right by the exhaust and you get in trouble. So basically, I bend the washer, tack weld it on so we can run the cables across. Right, that concludes the rear suspension. Next up, we've got the braking system. Here you can see the various pedals: clutch, brake and throttle. The one in the middle is obviously the brake. If you look, you'll see a horizontal bar with two little gold knuckles on the end of it. That's so we can apportion the brake balance from the front to the rear. Those two little push rods, one goes to one cylinder, one goes to the other. If you look really carefully on this side, you see like a little screwdriver notch in the end of it. That's where we would normally put the brake balance bar. I'll show you how the brake balance bar works on the race car. Why do we have to have a brake balance bar? Well, if it starts raining, you normally have in the dry more proportion of brakes to the front than the rear, but when it's raining you don't want that. You want to take some brake off the front so you don't knock your front wheels. Now on here we've got this little knob, as you can see, and right down in the cockpit there you'll see when I start to unwind it, I can move the brake balance. Quite simple, and literally one turn will make quite a big difference to the car locking and unlocking. Okay, how does this actually work? I've got an old pedal here. You can see we've got a hole going through there, and we have a spherical bearing with a rod on each end sticking out, and that's what you can see in the car. And the closer you move the bearing to the appropriate push rod, the more pressure you will apply to it. So these are what the push rods are connected to, which are the cylinders. Now these cylinders come in different sizes as far as the pistons inside. I've got the same on the front and rear. You can alter them depending upon your braking requirements. So that's that. That little unit there is what we call a line lock. The line lock's there so I can lock the front brakes. It's quite an easy little thing to put in the system, and when you want to do a hill start, rather than yanking your handbrake on, I'll have a button on the steering wheel which I can press. That will lock the brake line, and when I press it again it'll unlock the brake line. It's quite a nice little unit. Here we've got the front discs. I'm mocking everything up on the brakes at the moment. You've probably seen in the other videos I've got some brakes on there that aren't looking too great. It's all the old stuff that I had left over. At the moment I'm just getting the position between the caliper face and the disc in the right position, and I'm trying to use the appropriate aluminium bell that we mount to the disc. These are the right size discs I'm going to be using. And on the back I've gone a stage further, and I've got the actual caliper on there, so I've got the fore and aft and up and down move position sorted. The only other thing I've got to do to the rear is I'm going to have to put a handbrake caliper on. At the moment I can either fit a separate caliper or I can have a combined one. And that concludes the brakes. Right, we're at the back of the car now looking at the gear cluster. I want to explain how the gear cluster actually works. Before I do that, the reason that Hewland became so popular is the fact that you can actually change ratios when you're at a race circuit very easily and fairly quickly. So if you want to go faster top speed or go through a corner quicker, you can change your gears. And there's some in the region about, for each box, about 30 different gears you can actually put in the gearbox. Right, so a couple of bits of explanation first before I pull the back of the gearbox off. Here, if you look, you'll see that's where a potentiometer is going to go, and that's an electrical device that reads the position of the barrel, and it tells you exactly what gear you're in on your display. You've got the filler there, and I've got a neutral switch which I've got to put in there. Right, so now I pull the back of the end cover off. Off it comes. Right, and up here we've got the barrel. We've got a selector arm that comes out here, and there's all your selector forks on there. Now I'll show you how it actually works. On the side we've got a lever, and as you can see the barrel is rotating, and these little the pins on the selector forks pick up and go and follow the track round. If you look here where I'm activating it, this is where the rack is on the side of the gearbox that I was showing you earlier. Okay, right, so now we come to stripping the box down. Now this is a very unusual box because most gearboxes, a bit like on a bicycle, the smallest gear on a bike by your feet is your slowest gear, which is equivalent to your first gear, and your tallest one is your biggest one. It normally goes into like a Christmas tree effect. This gearbox doesn't do that, so you don't have basically like it's like two Christmas trees going down on each other. But this isn't actually like that, because the maximum torque that goes through the gearbox is in first and second gear. So what they've done is they put the higher gears in the middle of the gearbox, so that the stack on this goes reverse, first, second, 6, 5, 4, 3. So the gear at the back of this gearbox here is actually third gear. Now I need a special tool to undo this, which I've got here. Helps it doesn't drop on the floor. You that might have noticed, that's actually a left-hand thread because of the way the shaft's spinning. That has to be a left-hand thread. If you look, I'm undoing it clockwise. Right, here's the first of our gears. Now this is third gear. As you look as I'm taking it off, what holds the gear into position is the actual dog ring. Right, so when you engage a gear and you get a horrible crunchy noise, it's normally this that makes the noise. It's the dogs hitting on one another. On a road car you won't have a dog ring like this, it's only for racing purposes. They have synchro rings, but the idea is very, very similar. So that's what engages your gear, and this hub actually drives, the drive goes through the clutch ring onto the hub and onto the pinion shaft, because normally the gear just spins when it's out of gear on that hub, and then when you engage the gear it engages. Now these dogs, if you look at them, they're all dovetailed, and when you lose that dovetail, that's when the car starts jumping out of gear. Right, so we go all the way through. I'll take a few gears off, won't necessarily take them all off. As you can see, we've got a slight difference here. If you look at that gear there, that's a polished gear compared to this one. That's got a special polish finish on it. Dog ring assembly, and we go right the way down now. That's 6, as you can see, that's 6th gear, and that one's there's 2nd gear. Okay, and you can see again, probably a lot easier now if I rotate the barrel, how the barrel rotates. You normally try and leave it in neutral when you're putting the thing back together, and if I go to where the neutral position is, which is there, that tells me it's in neutral. That's the little slot that the potentiometer picks up on to tell you which position the gear in. Obviously as the barrel rotates, it changes the voltage on the potentiometer, and hence it can read it. In there we've got, you probably can't see it, under there's the is a reverse gear, got a little magnet down the bottom, and this is your lay shaft. It might just pull out if I'm lucky. No, it won't. The other gear's in the way. I'll leave that in there for the time being rather than boring you taking all the gears out. But you can see the basic principle. I could just now change whatever gear I want to change and now put them back together again. Quite simple. Slide that one on as a little assembly. Then we find 6th gear, which is that one. Then you put a dog ring with your fork on. Little spacer. Now you put 5th gear on. Has to go on first. So you can see if you're in a hurry and you know what you're doing, you can actually change gears on these quite quickly. The biggest thing normally when you come to change ratios is not actually getting into the gearbox, it's all the stuff around it. As you can see, if you look over there, you can see all the stuff that I've previously taken off to get into the gearbox. Right, and that's it all back together again. I've got one other smart little thing on this. When you do this nut up, rather than having horrible split pins, they've got this quite clever little system here with 2 different splines on it. That's why you have to use a special tool. Right, that's that nipped. Pop them through there to pick them up. And then once you've got this, you then have to search around because it only fits in one place. You just keep going around until it lines up, bump, and then you put your circlip on and job's done. So that's how you change gear ratios on a race car. Fairly straightforward and quite simple. The last thing you've always got to remember to do when you do this is put oil in it. At the moment, because I keep taking bits and fiddling, I haven't put oil in the box, but that's one of the last jobs that I'll be doing. Right, that ends the ratios.
I hope you enjoyed this video. The next video I'm going to be cracking on with the sequential paddle system. Hopefully I've got the valve block and the blipper for the throttle, so I'll be showing you how to do those. So yeah, normal. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.